What's up, everybody? Welcome back. In case you're wondering why yesterday was an absent day, it was an absent day because yesterday was my wife's birthday, and I decided to take the morning off for that reason. So we are back today. It was a good day. We got to just hang out. It was kind of nice. Um, so we're back again today. So I wanted to cover this particular thing here about the church and money, or money and the church. Um, and I had a reason for it, and that is it kind of struck me as odd why so many of these big name churches um, seem to be so super wealthy and yet still keep asking for more. Um, and it almost struck me as weird, and trying to figure out whether or not it's biblical. Um, when looking at the goal of God's body, it doesn't seem to line up. And when I look at the function of the church today, it does not seem to line up at all, especially how they have it um, with what God had intended for his body to do while here. And that goes everything from the collection thing to their status before the government of a 501c3 corporation type thing. They all seem to want to benefit from the income given to them and still find a way around doing what exactly they should be doing with the funds they collect. Um, the crazier part to me is that when we look at how it's laid out and what it should be doing, there might be a few that still do it, but they're not the ones that are known. Okay. Um, and so I want to look um, at a few things. Okay. Um, and that is, first, we're going to try and break down exactly how this new entity of the church is considered. Okay. So the 501c3 makes them exempt from taxes. Okay. And certain types of taxes. Um, the problem here, um, and I mean federal income tax. Um, the crazy part is that Jesus addressed it. He addressed this exact same thing, and I don't know how it is that we don't see it. Um, and I think right off the top, I want to address exactly whether or not this is something we should be even entertaining as a body. When you go to Mark, we're going to take a look at Mark real quick before we do anything else. And in the book of Mark, there is a statement made, and this is what was said. Okay, um, in verse 13. Then they sent to him some of the Pharisees and the Herodians to catch him in his words. When they had come, they said to him, "Teacher, we know that you are true and you care about no one, for you do not regard the person of man, but teach the way of God in truth. Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not? Shall we pay or shall we not pay?" But he, knowing their hypocrisy, said to them, "Why do you test me? Bring me a denarius, and that I may see it." So they brought it. And he said to them, "Whose image and inscription is this?" They said to him, "Caesar's." And Jesus answered him and said, "Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's." And they marveled at him. So let's ask the question. This is in Mark 12, by the way, Mark chapter 12. What does putting yourself under a 501c3 do? It avoids you rendering to Caesar what is Caesar's. So, what would that make any entity joining in with the 501c3 crowd? You see my problem right off the top. And I know many will come and say, that's not the same thing and not the same. I get it. Not the same thing. Let's say it's not the same thing. What would be the purpose of doing that as the body? Now, the other issue here um, is the loopholes involved in it. Okay. 26 USC 170 provides a deduction for federal income tax purposes and for some donors who make charitable donations to most types of 501c organizations, among others. Regulations specify which such deductions must be verifiable to be allowed. Due to the tax deductions associated with donations, loss of 501(c)(3) status can be highly challenging, if not fatal, to a charity's continued operation. As many foundations and corporations, matching funds do not grant funds to a charity without such status. And individual donors often do not donate to such a charity due to the unavailability of tax deduction for contributors. So, what does that do? The essential problem with 501c3 in the church is that it puts exactly the church in a position where it ought not to be. It puts it in a place it ought not to be. Now, I'll show you what I mean here, real quick. I want you to, we're going to read another chapter, another passage here to identify what I mean by the issue at hand here. Now, you just watched and listened to a statement in the 501c3 about donors and how the tax exemption goes through. Now, I'm not a tax guru. I told you guys already, I'm not the brainiac, but I can see stupid when I see stupid, and I'll call stupid when I see stupid. You understand that? In James, okay, in James, it says this. I want to go to chapter 2. My brethren, do not hold the faith of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Lord of glory, with partiality. For if there should come into your assembly a man with gold rings and fine apparel, and there should come in a poor man in filthy clothes, and you pay attention to the one wearing the fine clothes and say to him, you sit here in a good place, and you say to the poor man, you stand there or sit here at my footstool, have you not shown partiality among yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts? In essence, the 501c3 in the church has become exactly this verse. Because what it has come to be is an accommodation for the wealthy to make their own impact on the church, as it were, by donation. And with that donation, because they're under the care of the government, that they don't have to really report a whole lot, they profit from it. Now, when you look at the flip side, where the church should be taking care of the widow and the orphan, you'd be hard pressed to find any of them doing that. In fact, I would dare say you don't see any really going to create even organizations for the widow and the orphan. They don't give donations to anyone in the church having any kind of issue being an orphan or a widow. I would even dare say that the majority of churches out there today have more poor people attending and they keep asking them for money than you will ever see another church giving poor people money and making everybody. They so about equality, but they can't be equal when it comes to money. In fact, you will hear some pastors say, "Hey, I don't even want poor people around me. I don't even want you." That's the crazy part to me. You heard one guy that said about don't give to the poor. It has become their mantra now to not. They are about collecting the money, keeping the money, spending the money, but never circulating the money within the church. Case in point.
Here's the other problem with the church is that anytime a person is in need, y'all go to running and dropping money. But let me tell you something, the poor will be with you always. And there is no blessing connected to blessing the poor other than getting back what you gave to them, but no multiplication. Multiplication is segregated for tithes and offering. When you give to the poor, the only thing you do is help them, but you don't help yourself.
And this has become the mantra of the church today. This has become it. Isn't that kind of weird? I find that kind of weird. Because if you're going to tell me that you collect money and you're collecting money simply for the virtue of having the money, and then when you talk about the poor, you say, nah, we don't give to the poor here. Because giving to the poor, what you're going to get back, you're not getting anything back for you. They're getting stuff, but who cares about them getting stuff? God said the poor are going to be with you always. So you're out of luck there, buddy. And as recent as last week, one of the other folks that most have been saying is the last remnant of good preachers. You might know him, Philip Anthony Mitchell. Not sure if you heard what happened with him, but he's being kicked out of the school that he's been having his church in. His church. Mind, I'm saying this, his church. I understand that plenty of people like the way he preaches and what he says, and he sticks to the word. But there will come a time when that zest for the Lord is tested. And what he decided to do, it's kind of interesting. And this is all part of what I'm talking about. Okay, so I want you to be clear about what I'm about to address. He had asked his congregation to give to try and find a place. And I'm trying to I'm not doubting his sincerity of his wanting to find God, at least not yet. However, he had said to his congregation, I'm not telling you what to do or how to give, but just that we need to find a different spot. He told them, like I tell people to, take it to God and you figure out how much, if anything, other than prayer that you're going to give. Now, this is just me. If that's the request I made of my congregation or the congregation, my apologies, the congregation, I would leave it right there. That's where I would leave it. Leave it to you talk to God about it and let the rest figure itself out. But what happened next was kind of surprising to me, especially when you've heard about the situation with the place he showed up at. Um, he decided to pass by bypass the request of the congregation. And you probably wouldn't guess where he went to try and facilitate the funds. Anybody can guess where he went to try and get that money? Anybody want to take a guess? Some of you might already know, but anybody tell me or take a guess? He went to Daystar. Now, I the problem for me is this, okay? And this is not really a theological issue with Mr. Anthony here. But it is a discernment issue I have with him. And the discernment issue here is this. Why would you go to them of all people after telling people to consult with God about what is the next step? And then the message you preach there is almost a watered down version, and then I mean a completely watered down version of the things you espouse on the regular at your own church. He did exactly what people like Marcus Rogers did. You go before the people, partiality with money, and you talk different to them than the stuff you say when you're not around them. You give the most passive, placating, soft, and I mean empty sermon you could possibly give. And we might break that sermon down compared to his rest one of these days. Because you are before people with funds. You have spent a lot of your time speaking out about people and their marriages, people and the abuse that they do, people and how they treat children. You talk about all that. And for the sake of money, you go to the den where it's rampant and unaddressed because they have money. And you cannot afford to have no spot for your church to meet because it would be absolutely horrendous if you were to meet on, say, some street corner or in a house or something. I don't necessarily understand how you get to that switch. But I do understand how you get to that switch. If you are going to tell people, leave it to God, ask God about it, and God will do what God's got to do. You do not then go try to associate yourself with the people that have nothing to do with God to get something that you say God's going to handle. But again, this is an example of what I mean about the money and the church being so separate in the book, but yet being so joined in the real life that we forget God altogether, and God money has become kingpin. Money has become kingpin. We do not trust God. And all this talk that people have and state, these big preachers that talk about trusting God and loving God and this about God and that about God and what God doesn't like and God hates and God. When it comes down to it and the test shows up to actually trust him in something, it's no longer there. It's gone. It's gone. Mind you, the building he was wanting to facilitate himself in is no small building. He was looking at something in the region of millions of dollars to purchase this building. Numbers have become the key, the goal, not quality, quantity. We want plenty people coming. You don't really care whether or not they get anything, but you just need plenty people coming. And the best way to do that is with funds. You have to have a nice building. You have to have facilities for everybody, amenities. You have to have food. You have to have coffee. You have to have this. You have to have that. You have to have everything cool. Where is the trust? What, and that's a very good question. Why not? There are so many options. And I mean hordes of options. Don't want to do those. You look at myriads of other churches, okay? They always have a portion where they ask for money. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't give. I'm not saying that. I am saying if you have to coerce, beg, repeatedly ask, then it's not from the heart. It's now become a request, almost a demand, but a soft demand, a passive demand. You don't think passing the plate around is a demand of people? It's a shaming tactic. Money is now the god of the what you call now the church. It's a shaming tactic. Say the plate passes in front of you. You don't put anything in. You are now almost compelled to drop something in the plate. Whether you want to consult it with God or no, now you are told there's a plate passing in front of you. You better be giving. There are people watching. We are now about to give. Make sure you give. The church needs you to. Church needs you to give. I don't for a minute think that God planned it like that. In fact, they've taken words that the Bible says about giving as a way to be coercive. Give and it will be given to you. You know, if you want to get something from God, give it. Give to God and He's going to give you back. I want you to hear it for yourself. If I can find the exact spot here, because I need you to hear it because it's essential. It's essential. Because he's not the only one. He's not the only one that says this. He may have be the only one to say it out loud like this, but the idea is the same in a myriad of churches.
God is my business partner, and my giving to him is his cut. And if I rip off his cut, why should he bless me? I start giving on that level so that God would owe me. Oh, y'all don't hear what I'm saying? You can't handle that. I started giving on the level where I put God in debt. And God said, I'll owe no man. I start giving on the money that I wanted to make. I start giving on a deal that hadn't closed yet. And that God had to open up the windows of heaven and pour me out a blessing because he wasn't going to be in debt.
Look, I understand that was TD, and he is notorious for saying stupid stuff. I get it. I understand. I understand that TD is a heretic. I get that. But is he that far off from where others are? Is he that far off from where others are? He's not. He's not that far off. The goal has always been to drag more funds out, drag more funds out, drag more funds out, get more, get more, get more, get more. And what's the goal of getting more? To prove God's blessing in your life. You see, God really has one real goal, and that is your prosperity. And I don't mean just the prosperity gospel. I mean, in everything, it is always about you getting, not you giving just because, not a cheerful heart giving. No, that is not what we do. He wants you to give because you're going to get. We have taken, and I said this before, we have taken the blessings of God and made them into a bank account. I am only doing this in order to receive a thing back from him. Giving because I know something of him is not what I do anymore. I'm giving to get something back. I want you to read, I'll read something with you here, okay? And I want you to analyze what is being said. And you tell me if this sounds anything at all like today's church. Okay? Because I guarantee you it's not going to sound anything like the church today. Parable of the talents. For the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling to a far country, who called his own servants and delivered his goods to him. And to one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his own ability. And immediately he went on a journey. Then he who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them and made another 5 talents. And likewise, he who had received 2 gained 2 more. But the one he had received 1, he dug a hole in the ground and hid his Lord's money. After a long time, the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them. I want you to really mark that last line real quick. Their goal today is the accumulation, the expenditure, the showing of money. They're opposite of these people right here. They want to accumulate the money to prove something about God giving. Meanwhile, this particular parable is talking about the money that they were given, the things they were given were doubled and given back to God, not kept. Not kept. So the one who had received 5 talents came and brought 5 other talents, saying, Lord, you delivered to me 5 talents. Look, I have gained 5 more talents beside them. He is giving this back, not hoarding, not keeping, not spending, not showing, giving it back. They kept none. Unfortunately, today's body wants to keep everything they get. His Lord said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. Only happened after they gave everything back. Today, they want to make it, keep it, and still want to be told, enter. He also, who had received 2 talents, came and said, Lord, you delivered to me 2. Look, I have gained 2 more besides them. His Lord said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. Then he who had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. And I was afraid and went and hid your talent in the ground. Look, there you have what is yours. But the Lord answered him and said, you wicked and lazy servant, you knew that I reaped where I did not sow and gather where I have not scattered seed. You ought to have deposited my money with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received back my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. Money has become the leader of many churches. The church today is very hard to find. Easy to stay with, but very hard to find. Because there are many things out there wearing the title church that have nothing to do with God. All they deal with is a pastor and money. They have a leader, and he mentions the name God often, but he is about money. And I mean this down to the very small ones that want to still have this title of 501c3. This is where it begins. It begins by hoarding. It begins by doing the opposite of what he said. Hey, render to Caesar what is Caesar's. Why are you trying to be exempt from something? Why? Because you want to keep. You want to keep. How can you say you're operating in obedience when you're trying to avoid obedience? How? How are you going to espouse to anyone that you're an obedient individual when you yourself are not obedient in that one area? And that's the biggest area, because it's the one that draws the most people in. It's the one that's going to draw people, because now you have the money to put a big building up, and the government will help you with that, not God, not God, the government. They have more reverence for the government than they do for God. They have more trust in the government than they do for God, and they give more to the government than they do to God. They're in more fear of the government than they are of God, because God is not the head, money is. And they will tell you, God wants you to have this and God wants you to have that in order for you to give more. The more you give, the more God you got. If you just keep giving, God's going to keep giving back. Shaken and stirred and pressed down and all that stuff. That's what they take that quote out of context, and that's what they tell you. And running over. That's what God's going to give you if you just keep giving. Keep handing us your money. We need that money like you wouldn't believe. Meanwhile, when he sent out his people, it was almost counter to what we see today when missionaries get sent out. Today, a missionary is being sent out, and you'll see fundraisings for it. They go out with monies and monies and monies and monies and monies and monies and monies. What did Jesus send the 12 out with? What did Jesus send the 12 out with? You tell me. I'll tell you what Jesus sent the 12 out with. Luke 9. Then he called his 12 disciples together and gave them the power and authority over all demons and cure diseases. He sent them to preach the kingdom of God and to heal the sick. And he said to them, take nothing for the journey, neither staff, bag, bread, or money, and do not have 2 tunics apiece. They are going into uncharted territory, by the way. Hostile territory, many of them. You can't even take a staff for self-defense. Whatever house you enter, stay there, and from there depart. And whoever will not receive you when you go out of the city, shake the dust off your feet as a testimony against them. And they departed and went through the towns, preaching the gospel and healing everywhere. Did you tell them, when you go, put down a church, collect as much money as you can, make sure the church is opulent. We want to make sure that building is really nice. Make sure it's temple-esque. Make sure you have a lot of gold. Make sure you hang out there. And make sure when you do go, you have as much, and I mean as much time spent there telling people to give. No. Did he tell them, when you go there, make sure you ask people for money. Make sure you beg. Make sure that they give you stuff. No. He even had an example of somebody of how they operate today in the name of Judas. Judas was the one that handled the money. And every time Judas wanted to collect money and they were going to use it for something that was actually for the kingdom, if you remember correctly, that money was always being used for what? The people that Jesus was preaching to. You ever realize that? Have you ever realized It is crazy to me. We had a guy like Judas, collected the money, and all he thought about doing that money with was himself and spending it on stuff he wanted. God, Jesus knew this. He knew this. It's no different than now. Every time Jesus was looking to use that money, he used it for the people he was speaking to, the places he went to, or to set up the feast for when they were going to Passover. It was never kept for his outfits, his Louis Vuittons, or its equivalent back in the day. He walked everywhere. There was no carriages everywhere waiting for him. Took a boat, which they already had because they were fishermen. The very basic of basic of basic. All we have today are a bunch of Judases. All they do is hoard, keep, take, beg, want. And then they'll chalk it up. Oh, this only happened because God blessed it. Yeah, God did this. This is a God that we want to thank God for this. Meanwhile, you haven't followed a single statement that he made. You are not even operating in the way that he wants you to operate. You are functioning in a way that is counterintuitive to his trust. If you trusted God, there would be no need for that. The church back in the day met in homes. There was no money spent on tabernacles and temples and massive buildings and doors swinging both ways and food to break. And he told you even eat before you get here because this is not a place to just come and eat and just hang out. They met in homes. It was the kind of system that kept people focused. We don't want that, though, because that is too simple. But there's too many people now. We need more people to be all in one spot. The only reason, and I will say this, the only reason 90% of these people have a church gathering is for collection. They need more people available in the building because that way they get more funds into the building. That's what it's about. The size of your church means that you are growing. Yeah? Tell me you haven't heard that one. Oh, he has a growing church. Why? Because the building he has is huge, and the amount of people that church is alive and growing. Meanwhile, what they actually espouse at the church doesn't even include God, but it's growing, and God is blessing it because it's growing. Which God? What God is blessing it? You tell me. What God is blessing it? You have pastors pulling up in Lexuses, in Maybachs. They get paid $10, $15, $30,000 to preach per sermon, some of them. You got people like Lovie Elias that all they do is collect money and beg for it. And they want to have the most expensive things. They live in the most opulent houses while preying on the poor. You got monkeys like Keon Henderson, and I'm going to call them what they are because they're not of God. Keon Henderson is not a believer. He's not a Christian. I don't know what he calls himself, but he is not any of those things. He's a heretic. He's a demon. He's all of those things. The same thing with T.D. Jakes, a heretic, a demon. There is no God in these people. None. Jamal Bryant, demon, heretic. There's no God in these people. Stop trying to act as though they are believers. They are not. They're empty shells. They lie on God all the time. They abuse his name. They do not believe in God. They believe in self. So I will not address them as though they are believers. I will address them the way that their father should be addressed. And their father is Satan. And I'm not going to address them. Oh, this guy has a church. He does not have a church. He has groupies. They have groupies. I refuse to address these clowns by any other term than what their father should be addressed as, and their father is Satan, and I will keep calling them exactly what they are. I'm not addressing T.D. Jakes as bishop. I'm not addressing that homosexual as some bishop. Never will. Their goal is money. Their goal is to steal, kill, destroy. They are of their father, Satan, and that is who they serve. They do not serve God. God is only there to drag the miserable in, the vulnerable. And they will pay severely for it. They will pay severely for it. They have made a mockery of his body. They do exactly what the soldiers did at the time that Jesus was crucified. They take his robes and they divvy it up and they cast lots. There'd be no different than any of the centurions whipping him. They would stand there and do that. These are the same people that would take a spear and push it into their side. That's what these people would do. And then turn around after doing it and said, praise be God. Because what they really do is exactly like the centurions. All hail the King of the Jews. Look at him on the cross. That's what they do. They mock God. You want me to respect them? Miss me. You want me to speak nice about them? Miss me. You want me to be nice to them? Reach out? No. I don't want nothing to do with them. They are intentionally doing this. This is part of their plan. They use money, and money is their God. I don't want anything to do with them. I'm not going to be nice to them. Olive branches are not part of my inventory. I do not extend goodwill to the devil. I don't do it. Why would I? Why would I? You want to know why so many will eventually fall by the wayside? Because some of them are actually convinced that what they're doing is of God. There'll be many more that will come and have that statement to be made before God. Didn't we do this in your name? Didn't we do that in your name? Didn't we do this and this and that and this and the other? And you look them dead in the eye. I didn't even know who you was. Who you talking? I don't know you. You followed a cult. You followed somebody. You didn't follow me. You never knew me. You have no clue who I am. You attended some building, called it a church. You thought you could pay your way into my good graces. You thought my grace was purchasable. You thought my love was something money could buy. You thought heaven was a commodity. That's what you thought. You thought my presence was in presence. It's not. You thought the accumulation and the collection of funds and gifts and houses and cars was my blessing you. My blessing to you was the offering of saving your soul from hell. You didn't want that. You wanted more materialistic stuff than anything else I had offered you. You didn't want my grace. You didn't want my love. You wanted your comfortability. And you looked at comfortability and equated it with money and called it my blessing. I didn't know you. I never knew you. You're a worker of iniquity. Do you understand how dangerous this thing is? More than just saying, oh, you shouldn't be a 501c3. Oh, that's not a very good thing. Or maybe that kind of giving is just not what you should be doing. It is far worse than that. This is not something trivial. This is a replacing of the head of the church with money. Do you understand the danger? God is no longer in charge. Do you realize how many people are being bought, paid for, and some of them willingly give themselves up to this? Do you not see the danger of this? This is far more than just some, oh, I give to the church and God is going to health and wealth. Okay, look. Health and wealth gospel is one thing, okay? People like Olstein and those other fools, we get it. They have a grift and they never talk about the gospel. They don't. I don't consider them anything more than motivational speakers. I'm not equating them as a part of the church, but they do. But do you understand the dangerous portion and how many millions are following them? Do you understand? Joel Osteen's church accommodates about 45,000 attendees per week. Let me say that again. 45,000 a week in person. In person. That's 45,000 souls that he will have to answer for. 45,000 souls that he have brought under judgment. T.D. Jakes is no slouch either. He's right up under there, somewhere in the region of 30,000. This is serious stuff. This is serious. This is more than just a flying by a seat of your pants and, oh, maybe we just changed the way we give and all. It is a complete mind shift that needs to happen. And the reason it won't happen is because the leaders are not interested in pushing something biblical. They're interested in making the Bible seemingly work for them and telling everybody else this is how it works. You ask. It is up to you to ask. You go to one, you listen, you sit there, you listen, compare what they say against the Bible. That's the first thing. If it ain't even remotely following the Bible, you don't need to ask about 501c3. They already don't match up. So right off the top, I ain't coming back here. You done. That's one off the list. They will even tell you right under the front what they are. Now, say they say something that, man, that does actually, it's in the book. Right after you're done, that same day, are you guys a 501c3? Two things will happen. They'll right away say, no, we're not that. Or they'll say, why do you want to know? The instant you ask and they say, why do you want to know? Leave. Because they are. One that isn't will be happy to tell you they're not. One that is will always ask why you want to know. It's really easy to weed them out. God made it this easy. If they don't follow the book and they won't answer that question, don't even bother. Nothing they have for you is worth it. Nothing. And I mean nothing. I don't care what kind of kids program they got. I don't care what kind of outreach program. They have nothing good for your soul. They do not follow God right off the top. Dump, block them. They are not of God. 100% wipe them off the table. They're not there. Done. It's an easy fix. If it don't line up with scripture and they don't want to answer that simple question, they're done. They're done. It's really simple. We have to start drawing the line. We have to make that line solid in the sand because God did. We have to be hard and fast about it because God is. We cannot be lackadaisical because God isn't. These mega corporations, not churches, they're mega corporations. In the cities that they are, should have no homeless people, literally no homeless people. They have enough money to build crisis centers everywhere. And in every crisis center, preach the gospel. They will never do that. There should be a list in your town. Let me see if I can find it here. Let me see if I can help you out. Okay. Let's see if this would be one here. All right. Let's see. Okay, let's give me an example. Give me a state. Just give me a state. Let's start there. Give me your state, Miss Calabash. Just give me a state. I don't need your city. I just need the state. But they should be listed on the IRS's website by name or something. So I'm checking right now, but they should. Ohio. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. Okay. You may not have to give. Let's look at any random city in Ohio. Let me see here. I don't know Ohio, so I wouldn't necessarily know. Let's do this one. Let's go with Bedford. Bedford, let me see what the population. We're going to go by population here. Let's go to the largest one. That's probably more likely where they'll be. So let's go to Columbus. Okay, we'll do Columbus. All right. So if you did that and you don't have an IEN and you don't have any of that information, you can just go to the IRS's website and look up, and it'll bring up everyone that has a tax exempt status. Every last one. It'll take you some time, but if you are serious about it, you take the time to go do it. I still say the best idea is ask them. That tells you way more than spending 15 hours looking them up. Put them on the spot. It'll tell you two things outside of the fact they don't want to answer it. It'll tell you the level of honesty they have towards you. It'll tell you way more. The simple question will tell you way more about the leaders than anything else, than looking it up. Test them right on the spot. You're a guest. You would just walk right in. You listen to what they got to say. Then you ask them. Go straight to the lead. Now, here's the other thing. If you can't even get to speak to the pastor, something is wrong. If there is a checkpoint before you can talk to the leader, leave already. Don't even bother trying to ask if they're 501c3. They already don't have accessibility to the so-called leader. Leave them. There are so many red flags that they put towards you. Check it like that. You should be accessible. You shouldn't have no stinking bodyguards. But I understand why you have bodyguards, because you're hoarding money and people want to rob you. But when you give all your money, ain't got nothing to rob. It is why you can't talk directly to these people. It is why they keep their hands at bay. They are doing the complete opposite of what a leader does. They're doing the complete opposite of what Jesus did. Jesus was not inaccessible. Even when he was with his people, he would say, whoa, man, what you doing? Stop. He would stop them from stopping people. You don't see that today. You don't see that today. Even Mr. Apostle himself, Geno Jennings, has bodyguards. What you need bodyguards for? Thought you trusted God. Ain't you got work to do? You got work to do for God, right? You're going to do greater works. You're going to do greater works, right? Why are you worried about people? Huh, Gino? Why are you worried about people? Why you need a bodyguard? Why you need defenders? Trust God. I thought you trusted God. I thought you were an apostle. He showed up to you personally, didn't he? Why are you scared? Isn't to die for God gain? Why are you worried about death? Because you got reputation ahead of you more than you got following a God, you heretic. This is what I'm telling you about trust. They do not trust God. It is very difficult to trust God. I'm telling you now. It is difficult. Because to understand trust in God means that you have to release everything. Everything has to be released. You can't hold on to anything. You can't. Even if I prep in self-defense, I know for a fact that if I'm supposed to go, I'm going. I'm not worried about that. I'll do my chore of protecting my family. But when it's time, it's time. I'm not going to scream out, why now, God? No, when it's time, it's time. If destitute is what I'm supposed to be for a while, destitute is what I got to be for a while. If having money is what I got to dad, and having money is what I got. But I'm also told what to do in both situations. When I have, I give. When I don't, I still give. It's crazy. Unfortunately, the majority of churches have gone the way of mammon. They have gone the way of money. They have taken sides and they have put God on the back burner, or he's just on the letterhead and he doesn't have any signatures on any of the documents. It's all forged. All forged. I understand that finding a body is difficult today. I do. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have one. I will never tell anybody to never go and find a body to worship with. I will never tell you that. But I do understand that the current iteration of the church is not the church. And I've said that before. It is some amalgamation of something that has the title and none of the actual guts of it. But if you want to find a body, the body, you have to vet according to the way God said. And the way you vet, are you preaching his word? And are you following his hierarchy? Are you doing things his way, yes or no? And I don't just mean, are you being nice to people? Are you doing this out in the street? But if you are still leaning on the government and somebody else on funds and money, you're not depending on God. And if you're not depending on God, then who's leading? Who's leading? In any case, food for thought, if nothing else. You don't have to pay attention to anything I said. I've said that before. Not coercing anybody, forcing anybody. I can't convince nobody. And I've told you all before, weigh it against the word. If it doesn't match up, then let me know. But from what I can see, these so-called churches don't follow. I'm not saying it can't be. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying it can't be. But I want to make sure that if you are considering something like that, that I'm not the leader. You do get this. I do not lead anything. God leads. I might be used, but I'm not a leader. I might be used, but all of us can, which is why I stick to the each one has. Which is why I really want to get that Zoom thing going, but I've been bogged down, and my apologies. Because I do think we can all benefit from the way God sets stuff up. It's a twofold thing. This is what it does. It creates in you a need to be before him. That's what it does. It creates for you the necessity to get something from him, which means you spend time. See, when you have it the other way, you wait for the pastor to bring you something as food for thought. The way it should be is that you have time before him. And then when you meet with the rest of the saints, everybody has had some time. You know how long it can go on for? Hours upon hours, especially if everybody has something. In any case, I do appreciate you guys and your time. But I want to make sure that my message gets through loud and clear. If you are not weighing everything against what God says, then you're simply following man, and man will lead you astray. Okay? Do that, and you can't go wrong. Don't depend on me. Don't depend on man. And I've told you that before. Everything I tell you, everything you hear me say, every point of view you hear me take, I always try to tell you, take it to the author. If you don't do that, you're going to start believing stuff, and you won't be able to create your own faith with God. You'll create a faith, and that will be a straight talk faith. Or be a more, I don't want that. God doesn't want that. It should be yours. It should be your relationship with him. Talk to him. Author, finisher, faith. If he's that, no middleman. There is no middleman. The other people should be there to simply solidify what he told you. That's it. If it's not getting solidified, don't listen to it. And it will always be backed up It will always be backed up. You will find it and you will hear it and it'll be repeated. It'll be repeated in here. You'll not be able to find it outside of it. You'll find it in here. All the time, every time, without fail, you're going to find it. Oh, it's nasty. It was 20 degrees yesterday. I'm so sick and tired of winter, man. Like, I can't even tell you how tired I am of this place. I finally got, like I said, I set up a good heater and I got a good one, a nice good one. It's right here, but it's unidirectional. And because of where I'm at, it really doesn't, I have to keep something close, but I don't like it, man. I hate this cold. I really don't like it. I hate cold. I'm sorry, God, but I hate cold, man. I understand the purpose of it, but golly. It's a test. It's a test. I know it's a test. It's a test. In any case, we have some massive info to drop on Too Strong about the issue we have been dealing with when it comes to Allie Carter. So please check out and keep updated, because what we're going to be doing between now and Monday, let's just say it's going to be a massive roadblock for them with the info we got. And I mean it. It's damning. It's damning, really damning, ridiculously damning. So just so you know. So check that out. Savage Pacers will be back tomorrow. I'll be back on tomorrow with something else. And we start Matthew on Monday. So keep an eye out for that. If I can get everything up and running, we'll meet Sunday. Okay, but I'll let you know via community tab. So check the community tab when you can. Okay, check the community tab when you can this weekend to see if we're going to be up and running. And I'll drop the Zoom link in the community tab so you can come in. Okay, that's what, if I do the link, that's where I'll put it, is in the community tab. That way it's open to everybody. Okay, not just our little circle. The community tab is easy to find on YouTube. I'll show you where you can get to it real quick so that people are not lost. Let me bring this up real quick so you can see it. So this is my page, okay? This is Straight Talk. And you see this right here, community, bam, you click on that, and it will be a statement in here. And I'll drop it, and it will tell you, and in that description, you'll find the link. Okay, that's where I'll put it. So when you come to it, home is where you'll find, and then you'll scan across, you'll see community, boop, and then wham. You'll look for it right there. Pretty easy to find. Okay, pretty easy to find. So we'll catch you guys later tomorrow. Love you, mean it. Wisdom calls to you from the streets, so please, please, please find wisdom. Peace.
Hold tight the dreams, for if dreams die, rely on yourself and no way. Believe